Okay, hi, I'm clinical social worker Dr. Beth Plachetka of Safe Harbor Counseling in Sugar Grove, Illinois. I'm with Kevin O'Connor, a licensed marriage and family therapist, a professional speaker, a speaking coach that I love working with, a speaker, a presenter with the National Speakers Association. We're here to do a series of 4 topics, and the 4 topics are the importance of friendship, becoming an adult, the art of discipline and success, and the importance of balance in life. Hello, Kevin, how are you?
I'm very good, Beth. Thanks. We're going to talk about teens becoming adults. And I'm reminded I teach a lot of physicians, and the pediatricians are always very big on children are not little adults. They said it is a totally different deal. And I wonder if, in your experience as a therapist, if that's also true for adolescents and teenagers, that they're really not little adults. Something else is happening for them that has happened to us, but isn't happening right now. How are they different?
They're so different. Their brains are changing dramatically. You know, in scripture, it says, when I was a child, I thought like a child and acted like a child, but as a man, I put away my childish ways. And, and my father used to say, you'd be amazed when I was 15. He'd say, you'd be amazed how smart I'll be when you're 21. He was right. So, there's a lot of connections. I am told that our brain gains a third of its weight, an additional third of its weight in adolescence. Wow. So if it weighs 3 pounds when we're 12, it's 4 pounds when we're 20.
Wow.
That's a lot of connections. And a lot of it is in that prefrontal cortex where you put together associations. Your impulse control from the back of your brain goes to the front. You think, maybe I shouldn't speak now. All of that is experience and developmental.
Wow. So does that also, I guess that would account for bad judgment that we see when we think to ourselves, what were you thinking? I guess maybe they weren't.
And here's the thing, they were thinking, but it was an incomplete information balance. If a friend says it's a good idea to jump off this cliff, look, it's fun, the water's down there, not knowing there's a rock underneath there. We always want to be saying, we need the rest of the story. We're going to teach them that there's more. Your friend is probably right, but what if he's not? And if he's not, what could happen? So how do you find out if there's a rock underneath that water? What do you do? And, those are things that it takes time. Sometimes we have to say, you can't go with friends who are going to tell you to jump off that cliff. We have to warn them about that. But we also want to teach them, get the rest of the information. What's the rest of the story?
Yeah. What's going to be like to hit the water when you jump off that bridge then?
Right. And even if there's no rock, sometimes water, if you're high enough, is like cement. When you're going super fast, it still hurts.
So sometimes there is a way that we can, as parents, somewhat educate them or fill out that thought they had that talks about the consequences that are involved.
Right. And we can almost give them, and this just occurred to me, I never did this, so don't ask me later if I did this, because I didn't. But kind of like a council of advisors, like, okay, so your uncle was an athlete. He can tell you about being an athlete. Your aunt did this, or your next door neighbor, because they don't always, as teenagers, want to hear from us.
Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah. So that you can almost refer them to these people in a sense then, huh?
Right. Or say, sometimes they don't want to go, but you can say, well, let's go ask so-and-so, or just a minute, let me call them and see what they think. Or you call them and say, hey, this came up in conversation, because again, you have to know your kid. Do they want you talking about them and them knowing about it? Yeah. Maybe not.
The TV host for late night, James Corden, said that when he was growing up, he was overweight. He was interested in music and dancing, which none of the kids were. And somebody said, well, didn't you get bullied a lot? And he said, I did, until I realized confidence is the kryptonite for bullies. He said it makes them powerless. And I thought to myself, I wonder how he, as a child or as an adolescent, came up with that if I'm confident, they don't bother me very much. Are there ways that we can help children and help adolescents develop that kind of confidence at a time when a lot of adolescents don't feel very confident?
I love that. I'm going to remember that kryptonite. It's kryptonite. You know, I think there's a lot of studies that show that the way we sit, the way we stand, the way we hold our head, whether we smile, which is again really part of the back part of our brain, that engagement. You know, when you smile, you're engaging with people. So, you know, when we can teach our kids, even if you don't feel like you're doing everything right, if you stand up straight and put your shoulders back, your chin should be up. Be able to look at somebody when you say hi. They're going to get a sense of confidence from you. And as a result, you will also be giving yourself a sense of confidence. Physical positions and posture really make a difference. There's a YouTube video, a woman whose name is Ann Cuddy, Cuddy. She has a PhD, and she talks about the Superman poses and the Power Woman poses and ways that we can just make our body feel like we've got our act together. And it really does help.
You know, for some of us, we want to imbue the values that we think are important in our children. And I think sometimes we'll hammer away at them about it, either our religion or our fraternal organizations, or maybe even our politics. We decide if we talk about it enough, that's going to be something that they will then ascribe to. But then there's always this one kid in the family who decides, no, I don't think any of that stuff's important.
Right.
How do we handle ourselves with pounding, and how do we handle that kid in our family? There's usually a rebel in every family at some level. How do we handle them during adolescence?
I think it's important for us to remember that diversity keeps us humble. That we created however many children that we have, we participated in their creation. However, if you look at the diversity worldwide, I think God likes it. It's okay. We don't have to do more than he's done. You know, I heard some guys say, you can tell that God likes diversity. Look at how many bugs there are. You know, there's a million. So, you know, it's okay. You know, it's okay to say, okay, so we differ. It's, you know, unless it's something that is morally wrong. They're going to hurt people, and we're against hurting people. Okay, we need to talk about that, because that's a problem in so many ways. But it's okay if somebody's different, or if they, you know, decide that they need to have a purple streak down their hair for a couple of years. Okay, or you know, if you become a famous singer and you have purple hair, it's all okay. And hammering never works. What it does is build up resistance.
Oh wow.
You know, so rather than be rigid, we can say, this is my position. This is what I think. Well, and somebody, you're right, is going to say, I don't think that. At one time, ideally, all of them will say that to you.
Yeah.
Okay, so tell me, what do you think? What's it based on? Let them be able to start articulating that there's a foundation for their beliefs that fit into the world, because there is a very definite fitting in that is necessary.
My kids at one point when they were adolescents didn't want to go to church. And so after church, I started taking them to Jamba Juice for a smoothie. And my wife said, the only reason they're going to church is to get the Jamba Juice. And at some point I kind of said to myself, I don't care. I got them to church. Did I do the right thing?
Absolutely. 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 Here's the thing. Who goes to work every single day, all day long, if they're not going to get paid? Sometimes sitting in a pew is hard. They're tired. Sometimes the reading or the preaching is over their head, or like seems, you know, way off base. So it's really painful sometimes. You want a little bit of a paycheck. That's great. Go to breakfast, go to Jamba Juice. You know, say that this is a requirement and this is the privilege you get because of it. Because the habit has been presented as an opportunity. What they choose to do as adults is their decision. But during that time, they're exposed to it. You know, that's great. They have to read books at school that they don't necessarily like, or at least read the Cliff Notes part of it. You know, the summaries. They have to know more than what they know. So good job, Kevin. That was a good job.
Thank goodness.
Yeah, they're all okay. Yeah.
So how about something easy to talk to the kids about, like sex? When should that start, and how much of it should, how do we manage our own fear about not only talking to them about it, but wondering if they got it, if they understood?
You mean there's the part about sex is a very important part of our lives, and yet
Yeah.
it's a very also sacred part of our lives, and that
Okay.
we don't want to treat it disrespectfully. You're going to get a lot more mileage out of talking about it before they are seriously interested in the opposite sex. When it is something external to them, so like, when girls start their periods or boys start to be interested in, like 10, 12, 11 in there, when you talk about, boys and girls are different, this is how babies are come to be, and, this is how it happens. These are the necessary things for a baby to do well in the world, because we know that while single parents can raise children, it really does take a committed couple, because it's a lot of work, and it takes a certain level of physical maturity and emotional maturity to give up time to the benefit of a child. So talking about that in advance, and that the desire to be with someone else sexually is very natural and very important, and shouldn't be entered into lightly, because I've had big teenage boys crying in my office after they had lost their virginity to their girlfriend and she broke up with them. It's not just the girls who say, oh, that was so bad, I thought he loved me. So we need to talk about what the warning signs are in terms of relationships, that it's much easier to stop early if you're interested in somebody and attracted and even feel like you love them. How do you keep yourself safe? I've had to say to people, you're not laying on the couch together and pretending that that's not going to be a difficult situation. Yeah. Sitting is much more appropriate if you're going to be careful. Keep a light on, go home before 2:00 in the morning. We want to give them really practical strategies, because practicality goes out the window when you really think you're in love and you're 16.
Yeah. So it really, and it's telling them again, kind of this common sense, what's normal, what can get you into trouble. And it allows them it's almost like what you talked about with regard to their posture and the way that they greet people. It's a way of interacting in the world that is healthy.
Exactly. And I say to kids of both sexes, if you can't talk to your boyfriend or girlfriend about sex, you should not have it.
Oh, wow.
If you can't say to them, these are my limitations, then you're not ready. That's not an emotionally safe relationship.
Sure.
You need to, if you can't talk, don't do it.
Now, there's always the kind of, sometimes married couples will make a joke, often at the expense of the husband, about the husband, even regardless how old he is, being immature. Or the wife will roll her eyes when he says something that's silly or off color in front of other people. Is there a point at some place where maturity happens and women don't have to worry about marrying these kinds of people anymore? Or can you be emotionally immature as an adult in the same way that we would expect a teenager to be sometimes emotionally immature?
I think periods of emotional immaturity are possible at any point. The goal always is to have the greater percentage be maturity. So we're always moving, like teenagers, we expect emotional immaturity to be ideally 50-50, like you're starting to make good choices, but you could still make mistakes a lot. But, often we say something off the cuff that is taken wrong, or, we might roll our eyes at our husbands, but they get to roll their eyes at us, because our emotional immaturity comes out in different ways. Right. We might not be so silly, we might be a little sharp, and so we want to be open to that again, this is not a perfect world.
Yeah.
All we're doing is moving closer and closer to that perfection. So we should be able to say, hey, that was to our husbands and them to us. That wasn't so smart, or that wasn't good. You might not want to do that again. It was, off color. You might not know that you said that, but
Yeah.
and we want to say that for our teens too. And often, I think we want to let our dads be involved in the talk about sex as well. It's not just mom saying, "Hey, come here, I got to tell you a secret." It's important for dads to say to their daughters, "I know how boys think. I was one."
Oh, wow.
And I can, and for women to say, girl, these are some techniques that come automatically to girls, and you
Yes.
want to be aware how that might make you feel.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So then it sounds like you're advocating some transparency, that the kids see the parents interacting with each other over these issues, that they can talk openly together in front of the children about some of these kinds of things when they happen.
Absolutely. I think it's good to be able to talk together about it. I also think it's great to be able to talk one-on-one and say, you know what, I'm going to have your dad bring this up to you, or say to the dad, hey, you know what, this came up. When there's an opportunity, who knows when it's going to be, this is a topic you could bring up that is important. It's kind of a question on his or her mind. That's important. A very important element, though, is that the parental relationship is not the child's responsibility. It's okay to see them, our parents, maybe speak sharply, and see them say, I'm sorry. But really important issues behind closed doors, because it's a 45-year-old relationship, not a 17.
Oh, okay.
They should not be trying to solve their parents' marriage or taking sides. They should not be the confidant. And we all at some point have said to our child, oh my gosh, we don't want to make that a habit. That's not what it's about. Marriage is between two people, and it affects everyone. And we teach them that, but we don't dump on our kids.
Yeah. Now, of course, some of the families watching this are not married anymore. They're divorced. Sometimes the children are going back and forth. Sometimes the parents are not on the best terms with one another. From your experience, are there ways to still raise healthy children, healthy adolescents, when very clearly that marriage didn't work? And maybe sometimes that divorce is not working as well.
Right. What I have found is in 99.9% of the time, both parents still care passionately about the kids.
Mm-hmm.
And it is important to at least let the other parent know this is a conversation that has come up. Because remember, our kids have the DNA from both of us, and their understanding and their capacities are going to be from both of us. And the parent that you're not getting along with might have the key to what's going on with the child. Recently, there was a adolescent who needed some help in the office. Parents had been divorced for a really long time. And the teenager had become an expert at manipulating the animosity. Except that when mom and dad started talking to each other, they came into therapy with her together, and suddenly that opportunity was gone. Okay. And the girl was much more secure. It actually helped her a lot to know that she could not use them against each other.
So transparency is okay in other words, does that mean that parents shouldn't keep the child's secrets?
No. If something is happening that is dangerous to the child, unless the other parent is incapacitated, like with a substance abuse or, a brain tumor, and cannot help, we should let them know. Because otherwise, they could become complicit. They could be helping the child do the wrong thing. And that's not fair.
Yeah.
And we always have to speak respectfully, even if we're angry or disapprove. Even if we have to say, I would not do what your dad just did. He did it, and that's him. I would do it differently. We don't want to call them names and get all angry with them toward our children. That's not good for the kids.
When our children have children, one of the things I learned is that I have to keep my mouth shut. that they're not interested in my thoughts about how to raise this grandchild, and I just have to shut up and enjoy the child, maybe enjoy them, but not teach them how to be parents, because they're not too interested, in my opinion. At what point do you think we tend to recognize our children no longer as adolescents, but as young adults?
There's an unconscious awareness, because it's not like a checklist. But, first, there's going to be times that they're going to say, hey, I've got this.
Yeah.
And we should say, great, tell me how it turns out, and walk away. We need to let them do it. It's theirs. One time, one of my daughters she asked me a question that was a yes or no question. And I went through the process with her. She goes, Ma, that isn't what I'm asking. Is it okay or isn't it? But she wasn't even mad. And that not being irritated, really, that she was just letting me know, was really the go-to, is like, she's got this. What am I doing?
Yeah.
It's when they can do reciprocity, when you do them a favor, they automatically do it. Let me help you with that. That's adulthood. When they don't ask you to rescue them. And if they do, they accept that I can't do that right now. Right. We shouldn't rescue our adult children. If they have a real need, we can help them.
Yeah.
But if they've made a mistake, they made a mistake.
One of the big transitions that happens, this will be my last question to you today, my big transitions that happen are going from high school to college, or from high school to some form of work or some kind of training program. That's a real rite of passage in many ways. Right. And parents are usually deeply involved in that from junior year on. Do you have any strategies for how we can both be involved and also be ready to let go when it comes time for that high school graduation and then to whatever is going to come next?
I think we should be prepared to be on call, but not pestering. So because, just because they go away to college doesn't mean that everything is suddenly easy. Many people suddenly realize that they do like their parents. Yeah. The emails are going to say, love you at the bottom, or, oh, I miss your potatoes, or whatever. I mean, there's something, that transition is hard. Just like when they go from the home to their own home, there's things that they take with them, and that we're the trapeze. So we swing with them, and then we leave them on the little bit, but we go back and visit them. Okay. So, some parents will say, I wait till they call me. I say, hey, you know what? Call them every Tuesday at 7:00 or whatever you guys agree on. Check in, say hi, tell them they can call you if they need something. Be loving, be interested, but know that no professor wants you to call them. Unless they've signed a release, you've got nothing. You pay the bill, and no boss wants you to call them in sick. That's unless the kid was in an accident and they're unconscious. You may call them then. Otherwise, they have to do it. Other adults don't want mommy calling or daddy calling.
The parents really have to support one another in this, because one could be overreaching into my baby, and the other one could say, they're in college. Remember when we were in college? I mean, this is a time for maybe a couple to help moderate each other.
Exactly. And what you'll find is I think it swings. First is one that's really over involved, and then it's the other. So, we do have to really balance. And that's where, we can go back to then our parents and have them go, yeah, right, you're fine. Just hang on. Because it's nice to have multi-generational availability.
Yeah. Yeah. What I like about talking to you about this kind of stuff is you have perspective. You're helping us parents and us grandparents have perspective, like, oh, okay, it's not the end of the world. But you also have a great deal of empathy. I mean, it's as if you've not only been through this, but listening to your clients have taught you kind of what goes on inside of people. We're not perfect, we make mistakes, but you seem very empathic towards some of the struggles that we all have.
Well, my approach is, if we're alive, we can still make change. So nothing's done till it's done,
There you go.
So,
Beth, it's been great talking to you today. Thank you very much for this.
It's so much fun. Thank you, Kevin, for being here.
Sure. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.